and happy podcasting day, everybody. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Fantastic. Hey. How are you?
We have a special guest with us tonight. Ross is, it wasn't his fault we're delayed today, but he had life come at him too fast, so we've got a special guest, Birdfinger. Bill, welcome to the podcast, guy.
Hey, thanks, man. It's great to be here, man. This is going to be fun.
For those that don't know, Bill, or Birdfinger as he's known on Twitter and on Hawkscast.net, has been a huge supporter. He's been a huge partner for us, helping us with the podcast behind the scenes, helping us with the forum, with the website, just doing all kinds of awesome stuff. So we're so thrilled that he can step in, help us out for this amazing day for a podcast. Because, gentlemen, I don't know if you guys knew, but the Seahawks set a record for most views for Monday night in over a decade.
Yeah, since 2009, right?
Yeah, something crazy like that. I couldn't find the exact date. I just knew it was like over 10 years. But yeah, they apparently set the record for, it's like one of the top two most watched Monday night games. There was like 19 million people that had watched that game, which to me seems kind of crazy. Seems kind of crazy because everyone's been saying, oh, no one will care about the Seahawks because they have such a bad quarterback. No one's going to watch that game. But a lot of people tuned in, and it wasn't just like the Seattle market and the Denver market. It was like all over the place. So that was pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. I think, you know, it was the first Monday night game of the season. People are going to watch no matter what. And the fact that it was Russell Wilson returning to Seattle, of course that's going to draw views. Anybody acting like they weren't going to watch because of Geno, that's just foolish.
I think it's weird because, like, all offseason, from the national, the non-Seattle perspective, it's been like, Seattle's trash, Seattle's the worst team in the NFL, they have the worst quarterback in the NFL, everything is they're the worst. But that is probably not indicative of maybe what fans are willing to watch. I mean, I did not think that the Cleveland-Carolina game was going to be very interesting, and while I didn't have that game available to me on TV, I found a bunch of highlights, and that was a somewhat entertaining train wreck of a game to watch. So I'm all for watching train wreck games happen because sometimes something crazy and something funny happens.
Totally. If this game was like week 10 and we were 2-7 and the Broncos were hovering around 500, probably be a different story. But
100%.
The first Monday night game of the year with all the hype of Russell coming back, of course, man. Of course people are going to watch it.
So it turns out we just might have a suitable quarterback for a while.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that first half, Geno started like 13 for 13. His two touchdowns that he had were just like perfectly placed balls. One was on the run, just moving up in the pocket, which is always great to see. And the other was just like he knew where Cody Parkinson was going to be the tight end and just threw a perfectly placed ball. And it was both of them were walk-in touchdowns, which is it's a rarity. Even when we had Russell Wilson, you know, he obviously threw a bunch of great balls to like Tyler Lockett and DK, but those are just like beautiful, like wide open. So credit to the Seattle offense for taking advantage, because my takeaway, especially in the first half, that Denver defense wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I think Patrick Surtain, he still played really well. He obviously clamped down on our wide receivers and on DK, but I didn't see anything overly like exciting or like special about that defense. I don't know if that's some either of you two saw.
No, I didn't see anything. I thought, Patrick Surtain, he was messing with DK a little bit. You know, he's pushing him around, getting in DK's face a little bit. But as you can see, DK kind of react to it a little bit. I was like, hey, I hope he stays cool. But other than that, you know, la-di-da. I think the Seahawks matched him pretty well.
I mean, speaking really quickly about DK, those were probably the most unspectacular, but there was one catch that he had of those 7 that was just like, they're just trying to feed him, and Denver's doing everything they can to make sure that they don't get beat by him.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting, that he went 7 for 7. He had one terrible play where he ran back way too far on a terrible screen. Yeah. I hope Seattle stops screen plays like forever and ever and ever. We're just terrible at it. But he finished the day 7 catches. He had like 8, I think he had 7 targets, so he caught all the balls that were thrown his way. But a lot of those balls were highly contested. Like none of them were like easy gimme throws. So, you know, maybe if we face a team that doesn't have as physical of a corner, like they're not going to be able to get away with that, because DK had a couple times where he put his arm on somebody and that helped him get a couple extra yards. So hopefully we see more of that.
And no more fumbling.
Oh, you know what? DK, I love DK. And it was a good play by the defense. You know, it's not like he was careless, for sure. But he was in the midst of being tackled, so it's not like...
Yeah, but he was
like flailing the ball around.
He was fighting pretty hard. He was, you know, sometimes I wish he'd be a little more like Lockett every once in a while, and just Lockett catch the ball, get out of bounds, or catch the ball, get on the ground, just play.
Yeah,
you know,
you got to kind of weigh the risks. You know, like okay, so he stiff arms the first guy, cool, but now you're surrounded by like 4 other dudes.
Yeah. He's going to fight them all off like the Hulk or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think if I were a man of DK's physique, I'd be like, yeah, I can take on 5 guys. Bring on 7 more. Like,
yeah, I don't blame him, but like, you know, we got to play a little smarter. That's all.
I do think though, what we will see is, if that is the emphasis for DK, is like, look, we're going to get you your 10 targets every game. It's up to you to see what you can do with them. I think that's nothing but a good thing. So I saw that as a promise. Obviously, we didn't see like a lot of success out of those results, but I still saw that as very promising, versus last year where we saw DK would get like 3 targets and then like all the targets were like nothing balls. So this, I think, is an improvement, and I think there's a lot more to improve beyond that, because that emphasis means that he's going to get looks, he's going to get those targets, he's going to get those opportunities. Whereas last year, I felt like Russ would just shut it down. And that's actually commentary that I read on a couple Denver websites and a couple national media, saying that, you know, even though Russ targeted Jerry Jeudy and Courtney Sutton for 7 targets each, they both caught 4. None of them were really downfield. Like that one play that he had for the long touchdown, the defender was in a decent spot and had a chance to stop the play. It was just a great run after the catch by Jeudy. So I did not think Russ did a very good job, and Denver overall did not do a very good job of trying to get their receivers involved.
Yeah, you know, one more quick thing about the Denver defense. I don't want to anger anybody, but honestly I think that Carl Mecklenburg and Steve Atwater are totally overrated.
Zeb going for some throats here. Well, the Seahawks emerged from Monday Night Football atop the NFC West as the lone victor from Week 1. The team won an emotional game against former quarterback Russell Wilson that definitely made a lot of fans extremely happy. Whether or not this is the team we can expect, it's not without its concerns, as the run game was definitely limited. Penny only ran for 60 yards on 12 carries. Jamal Adams is potentially lost for the year. The Seahawks now turn to our division rivals, who are also going through their own quarterback concerns as we travel to San Francisco to face the 49ers. This is the Hawkscast.net podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. And because he's our guest, Bird, we're going to drop you with the first question. And it's, did everyone try to downplay the importance of a win against Russell Wilson? So this is a question that Ross, he is not able to join us today. He proposed this question, and in it, I'm gonna read you the notes that he wrote. Last week, he wrote this in third person. Last week, Ross tried to downplay it, but was this the most symbolically important win since the Super Bowl win? So, do you think a lot of people were trying to like temper their expectations and make it so this game wasn't as important? Bird, tell me what you think.
Well, I'm kind of laughing because I know that's exactly what I did last week. I was thinking, you know, I didn't have much faith that we were going to win the game. So I was trying to just tell myself, you know, this is not a divisional game. This isn't a conference game. You know, if we lose one, it's just one and it's no big deal. We'll just move on. We get it over with. You know, even I was in the chat last week, and Tony was in there, a friend of the podcast, Tony, and he was saying like this was going to be our Super Bowl this year. And he was really hyping up how much. And I was like, no way, man, no way. But you know what? The thing is soon as Geno threw it to Will Dissly for a touchdown, I started to really want to win. Really bad. And afterwards, I swear the euphoria of winning that game afterwards was I'm trying to think of a game in recent memory that I was that happy about, and I can't figure one out. I mean, you have to go back to like playoff wins and such, but a regular season game, no, man, that was pretty incredible.
That's a really interesting take, because I'm trying to think about games that I have thought of as like, oh, this is a turning point. This is when like our season changes. Zeb, were you in that same vein where you were part of that everyone that tried to downplay this importance of a win against Russell Wilson?
I wonder how important this game was. I think everybody's riding high because of the situation, because of the scenario.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I don't think we know yet how important this game was. I would be very curious to know what the message was inside the building leading up to this game. Did they build up the Russell Wilson thing? Was this important to the team? Is this something that Coach Carroll wanted the players to think about? Did he use Russell Wilson as motivation? I wonder. I do think the players did on their own, whether that was the message from the team or not, from the coaches. And this is one reason why I'm skeptical as to how important this game was. If everybody got up for this game because they wanted to beat Russell Wilson, are they going to have something to get them up for all these other games? If we beat Russell Wilson in week 1 and we're 2-7 going into week 10 or whatever, was this game still that important? Or is it just the feeling right now because of the way things happened, the way things played out? The fact that we got to do this to Russell. We got to watch Russell lose at his first and only time against the Seahawks for quite a while probably. So I don't know if this game was that important. It feels great. I'm glad we won. I love it. But we still have a lot to learn about this team. And this game may or may not be a catalyst for something. I'm not sold yet.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
It's a good tempered response, other than myself.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of the word that I would have used. I thought this game was going to be a loss, not because I think that Seattle's like a trash team and Denver's just like this almighty. It's just that I thought like they would be able to use his skill sets in a way that he would be able to excel. And yeah, he threw for 340 yards, which is great, but he threw it 42 times, and he didn't get the ball to finish the game. I mean, that I think is like the biggest thing.
That was wild.
Yeah,
I still can't put my brain around that. I
mean, we don't really have a topic for that because, I mean, we're not a Denver podcast, so right. It's like I really don't care. Like, but
look, I mean, a minute left.
It was a minute 1 on the clock, and you have 3 timeouts.
3 timeouts, and you need 5 yards.
Yeah, you're at the 46-yard line of your opponent. The stats that came out after that was 47% of teams at 4th and 5 in that area convert. 47%. The odds of them making that field goal, I don't know where they came up with the odds. They put it at like 29%, I think was like the percent, the expected. But if you look at the number of field goals that have been made, it's like 2 for 40 something.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like 2% or something like that. Like it just never happens.
And the thing that's weird is like people are going to say like, oh, well, did you see he just missed it left? It's like, yes, but when you're that far out, the ball can still travel so far because it started in all the way into the last like 10 yards and then it finished outside of the goalpost. Right. So people that think that like you can be that accurate from that far, I don't think really understand the mechanism of distance on a field goal.
I think the defense of them not calling a timeout there is that they wanted to leave as little time for the Seahawks to have. But I think that's ridiculous. Like, you have to call that timeout there and discuss what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, the thing with that is, if the shoe was on the other foot, there is no way Pete Carroll's not going to call a timeout, and there's no way Pete Carroll's not going to put the ball in the hands of his quarterback and kick a 64-yarder. You know, I think it's just kind of funny that he left and his rookie coach screws the whole game up for him.
Yeah. I think that even if, I don't know, if this was the last, if there was 5 seconds left in the game, I get kicking the field goal. Yeah. You're looking at a Hail Mary or a field goal at that point. What's more likely? I get it. But with time on the clock and you need 5 yards and you have all of your timeouts, you have to at least stop and think about it and talk about it and discuss it and decide what the best idea is. Just letting all that time run off.
Yeah, especially a whole minute.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, they ran it down to, what was it, like the 30 or 20 something second?
Yeah, 20 seconds, I think.
Yeah.
So
ran it down 20 seconds.
The only thing that I want to critique about Pete Carroll about this game, and for the most part, I thought he coached a very, very good game, maybe a little conservative in the second half.
Yeah.
Can we please stop trying to ice kickers? Stop giving them an extra kick. Because what this reminds me of in 2012, Seattle came back. We couldn't do anything for like the first 1.5 quarters. We take the lead against the Falcons in Atlanta, and then we force them into like a decently long field goal. And we ice the kicker, and he misses it, and then he comes back and makes the kick, and then Seattle loses the game. And that was in 2012. And, we go on to win the Super Bowl next year. But icing the kicker seems like the dumbest thing in the NFL nowadays. It always gives them an extra chance.
Most people do it, though. Most teams do it.
They're not supposed to get the kickoff, though. I mean, he got that first kick in, and he got used to it.
But that's the thing. That's the thing, though. That's part of the rules, but the snapper's going to go and the kicker's going to kick. What are they going to do? They don't get penalized for it because they say, like,
I've heard the exact opposite, though, that, like, the thing about icing the kicker is trying to make them kick it twice.
Oh, really?
If you time it just right, you time your timeout just right, he has to go through with the kick, and it doesn't count. So I don't know. I guess we have to look to the analytics to see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I play, like, when you play basketball, you play horse. My friends, we've always played the when you get the final letter, you say, okay, it's time to prove it, and you get to say, okay, I'm going to prove it to keep myself in the game, or I'm going to make the other person replicate their original shot to knock me out. I always put it on the person to shoot because I missed. I don't trust myself to make it again. But we're talking about friends playing basketball. We're not I'm not going to give Steph Curry that second shot. It's like, I know he's going to make it. He's a professional. Why would I give a professional a second chance to do something like that? So that's what I thought of. Like, that was the only thing that really bugged me about that entire game, the way that it was called. And back to close up number one, because we actually are going to talk about Pete Carroll in a second here, is I think it was a really important thing for fans to kind of go in with low expectations because we really didn't know what we had. Like, the preseason really soured a lot of us onto what we had. And I think I want to give a lot of credit to Geno for playing really, really well. Like, if anything, that was what we saw in the Jacksonville game that we saw in this game. Because we haven't seen Geno play meaningful snaps, like real NFL snaps, since that Jacksonville game, more than a year ago. So credit to Geno for having a great game. He had the best comment. People wrote me off. I just didn't write back. So shout out to Geno. Final ideas about the importance of this game.
I hope it was important.
Yeah.
I hope it sets the tone for the season, and setting that sort of tone would be fantastic.
Nice. All right. Well, let's move on to topic number 2. And Zeb, I'm going to hit you up first. Did Pete Carroll's win forever philosophy win, or did the emotion just or did the team just ride this emotion for this 1 week? For week 1 of the NFL 2022 season, was Pete proven right, or was Russ and Team 3 and Jake Heaps and all his Russ acolytes, were they proven wrong for 1 week?
Well, I guess this kind of goes back into a little bit what I was talking about on the last topic. We know that Pete Carroll coach teams don't lack in motivation, right? Like, he gets his guys up to play. This is what he does. He's great at it. How many times since he's been here has it felt like the team didn't want to win the game? Very few. I mean, you could probably count on one hand the amount of times it felt like that, if that many at all. So I think that his philosophy is pretty much undefeated at this point. I don't, like I said before, I don't know how much of that has to do with Russell. I think for some of the players personally, it probably had to do with Russell. But I'm sure Pete Carroll wanted to beat Russell Wilson, right? Like,
yeah.
But I don't know if it was more important than if it was somebody else. I don't know that that's the way Pete Carroll looks at things. He obviously downplayed the whole thing in the week leading up to the game. Didn't make it about that. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see if it was more of a thing at the team facility than they showed outwardly. So I don't I can't really answer this question because I think it remains to be seen whether they got high for this game, and they're not going to be able to for others, or if they will be or not. I don't know. It's really tough for me to gauge at this point.
If you were a Pete truther, and Bird, I'll ask you to be the Russ truther on your turn. But if you were the Pete truther and you said Pete's the gospel, and this is what's going to set us up for the rest of the year, this is why Pete was right to, the Seahawks were right to let Russell Wilson go. Is this the game that you would use as your model and say, like, look, this is how we win every single game? Would you feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that if the roles were reversed, just as we've seen especially in recent years, if Russell was still with the Seahawks and say Geno or somebody else was playing for the Broncos, that score is it's probably not much different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. The Seahawks under Pete Carroll with Russell Wilson were famously, we'd get ahead, but we'd let people back in. This is post Legion of Boom, right? We'd let people back in, and even in the Legion of Boom era, how many times did we need a miracle, a last second, a last minute drive, some heroics, some Russell Wilson heroics? So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this team won because of Russell Wilson, which means we can win without Russell Wilson.
Nice. All right, Bird.
Yeah.
How about you? I'll let you get to your Russ truther stance in a second here. But did Pete Carroll's win forever philosophy, at least for just 1 week, win out, or was it just the team riding high and we'll see what week 2, 3, 4, 5 and down the road brings?
Well, I had a couple thoughts about it. I think Pete Carroll's philosophy is about competition, and I think just him starting 3 rookies, that's big on Pete's philosophy, and I that shows a lot. But the team didn't have many penalties.
No,
I think sometimes when a team is over anxious or excited or a little more fired up, a little play more emotional, that they're going to have more penalties than we did. And so I think they play disciplined, which is another thing that coach preaches, Yeah, that's about all I got on that.
All right. So we've branded you the Russ truther.
Yeah.
Tell me why Pete's win forever philosophy is wrong.
That's tough because I'm a big believer in it.
All right, all right. If it's too difficult, I'm happy to step in. But try to think.
Go ahead.
No, I want you to see, what do you think it is about the Russell Wilsons of the world that think that there's a flaw with Pete's win forever philosophy, especially with the way this team won. So just to kind of reiterate, Geno threw the ball 28 times. He was 25 for 28. He was just around 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. There was no huge bombs. The touchdowns respectively were very nice throws, but they're not like the moonshot, play action, deep balls that we've seen from Russell Wilson.
Right.
There were a lot of short passes. There were a lot of intermediate passes. There were throws, to the tight end. There were throws across the middle. That's the complete opposite the way that Russ played. How is Russ's philosophy gonna work if Pete can show you that you can win in this fashion?
Well, he's gonna have to. I don't know, Pete. Russ.
Twisting it up right now.
I know you are too.
It's a hard question. I don't have an answer. I can't answer the question.
It is a hard question, but why is it wrong? It's not wrong, but from his perspective, from Russ's perspective, he's a me guy. He wants to win. He wants to be the reason that the team wins. He doesn't really want the team to win together. He just wants to pull the team along and win the game.
Yeah.
He wants that kind of glory. He wants that kind of admiration and stuff. So him throwing the highlight film, shots and stuff, the crazy, escape out of the pocket and the deep ball to DK, that gets him on Sports Center. That gets a lot of talk. That builds a lot of hype around him, and I think ultimately that's what he wants.
So
and he thinks that's the way that things should be. I guess that's about as good as I got.
So just to put some stats out there for us to kind of talk about, and I appreciate Bird humoring me and trying to take on that challenging question, but Russell Wilson went 29 for 42, 340 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 sacks, a long of 67 yards. He also had a couple balls that probably should have been intercepted, and they weren't. So credit to Russ for getting lucky on those. Geno was 23 for 28, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, sacked twice, a long of 38, and a quarterback rating of 119.5. So the reason to me why the Russ truthers are out there is because they see those big yardages, they see those big plays, they see those big chunk plays, and what they've forgotten is they forgot how to convert third downs. Like, that was the thing that really stuck out to me. That Russ did not do a great job in that game. Like, there are so many opportunities where Geno just did enough to get the first down. He took the check down. Russ went to his running backs like a huge amount of times. He had 12 targets to Javonte, 2 targets to Melvin Gordon. So he had 14, more than a third of his, 40% of his passes were to his running backs, and they didn't get very far, but they got 5 average. So I think what it is to wrap this up, the Russ truthers of the world, they are enamored with the long play, they're enamored with the home run ball, they're enamored with the quick scoring opportunity. And the opposite is Pete's all about controlling the ball. Pete's all about sustaining the game. The Seahawks were 6 for 11 on third down, whereas the Broncos were 8 for 15. But if you were to tell me who was better at converting first downs in that game, I would have told you it was the Seahawks. Because for most of that game, it seemed like Seattle could control the ball. If not for DK's interception or fumble, maybe we would have scored a little bit more than we did, especially because we didn't score in the second half. But I felt like Seattle was always in control. I also thought that they had a bunch of garbage holding calls when like we had an actual good run.
Yeah.
So I think there is something to be said, and it will definitely get proven out this year. And maybe Russ's coach actually kind of chopped his legs off by not letting him go for that 4th and 5. Because if Russ converts that 4th and 5, let's say he gets 6 yards. And even if they run it down to 20 seconds and they call, their second to last time out, and they kick, instead of a 64-yard field goal, they're kicking like a 58-yard field goal, and McManus makes it. Then all of a sudden, Russ is a hero for getting 6 more yards, when really, on that final drive, they got the ball at 3:30, and they only moved the ball 30 yards, which is not a whole lot when you already start the ball at the 25-yard line. So another example where I think the Denver coaching staff really made their jobs a little bit harder. But let's plow ahead. We're going to go to topic number 3.
Oh, I just want to say one more thing. Those stat lines of Geno's sounds like a Russell Wilson stat line when he was here with the Seahawks.
I actually looked at his stats from 2002 real quick, and there are a lot of games. Russ actually surprisingly wasn't as accurate in a couple of those games, because 23 for 25 is really great accuracy. Russ is actually he was a little bit less than that in his early career. So
yeah, and his stat line with the Broncos for that game was more like a Peyton Manning stat line.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of quarterback he wants to be.
Which, if they can get their game plan figured out, maybe that's what he'll do by the end of the year, but we'll see. I mean, he's not young. He's not a young quarterback anymore.
Yeah.
All right, so topic number 3, the Hawks cast corner. Bird, why did all the past Seahawks return to Seattle for this Monday night game? We had Marshawn Lynch, we had Cliff Averill, we had KJ Wright raising the flag, we had Richard Sherman, Doug Baldwin in a booth. They were tweeting during the game. There was Thomas Rawls. There are so many well-known Seahawk players. It was a Monday night game, but why did so many come out for this particular one?
That is quite a question, because I think they really wanted to see Russ get beat, but why? And I think it's because the guy's he just never got on with the team. He's cringe. I mean, he is super cringe. He's like what I was talking about just previously. He wants to be the best to ever play the game. He says that all the time. I want to be the best to ever play, but he doesn't say I want to be the best the best on the best ever team to play the game. And he was always a me guy, and I think that really bothered a lot of people. And I saw a video of him today yelling at the players on the sideline to yell play or pass, a pass or run or pass. And I was like, he would never get to be able to do that at Seattle. They would imagine yelling run or pass to Richard Sherman from the sideline. He would get destroyed for that. But I just think he just didn't have good relationships with the other players at that time, and this is a chance to show that Pete and the way that he plays and the defenses that he had were more the reasons for the Seahawks' success during that era than maybe Russell was.
Is there any player that you saw or read about later on that you were surprised either by their appearance from the game, or maybe tweets or commentary that they had made after the game?
I saw there was a Doug Baldwin tweet that was just a gif of like a cheerleader, and it was after the game, and she was like raising her eyebrows or something.
Yeah, that was. She's just giving you a bunch of shade to kind of paint the picture. It's like she's giving you a lot of attitude in that photo for sure.
Yeah.
Zeb, what about you? All these Seahawks came out. There is so many Seahawks. Obviously, it's a primetime game. It's week 1. But the comparison that I heard it to, it was like a college homecoming game where all your stars come back and you play a team, and it's a game you think you're going to win because that's why all your hometown favorites are in town again. Why did so many Seahawks come to this game?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty easy. Like, I think first and foremost, these guys wanted to see their old teammate go against their old team. This is the kind of thing that happens now and again where somebody who's on a team for a very long time moves on to a different team and they get to play each other, in a relatively short period of time. And, it's substantial. There's a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings that go into that. I also think that the timing worked out really well, where that now that Russell's gone, this really is a new era of Seahawks football. These guys have all been out of the league now for a while. So it's reasonable for them to come back for this spectacle of a game. And as far as who the players wanted to win, or if guys wanted to see Russell lose, I think of all the people, pretty clearly Doug Baldwin wanted to see Russell get beat. I think Sherm may be on that as well, although I think it's more about him wanting to predict and be correct. Not so much that it's bad feelings or bad blood or anything. Yeah. I don't know that guys like KJ or Cliff have super strong emotions about Russell Wilson. I think these guys like those two in particular, are still tied to the team pretty strongly. They're doing media, that sort of thing. So they're still on the Seahawks in a sense, right? So of course they're rooting for the Seahawks to win. But I don't think there's a ton of like real bad blood between Russell Wilson and those guys. There's a couple, like I said, Doug and Sherm maybe, but like
I don't know.
I don't know that it's a big deal.
I think it's a bigger deal than you think.
I think
I do.
I think to Zeb's point is because there are a lot of those players that are associated with the team, they do need to kind of create this separation of maybe their personal feelings and still representing the team, because up until yesterday, Russell Wilson, had been a Seahawk forever. So I do think there's some merit to that. Now, I think obviously the kind of just rehashing what everyone's already said is this was a game where people wanted to watch Russ lose. Whether they were really rooting for the Seahawks to win, it was more like, no, we want to see him fail. And I think there was a lot to be said about that, because Russ did not do enough to win that football game. As the game was taken out of his hands, that's still a thing that happened. But Richard Sherman being one of the most vocal people about it, Doug obviously is not as vocal. He's a little bit more like, he wants to be a little bit more under the radar. But Richard Sherman, the week of the game, before the game happened, he said all the pressure is on Russ. All the pressure is on Russ. They're the favorites. They're expected to win. They're the odds favorite. But if they lose, what's that going to say? And now everyone's talking about his contract. Everyone's talking about the head coach. Everyone's talking about all the mistakes that have been made. And there's a little bit of kind of like revisionist history that's occurring now, where Russ is saying like, oh yeah, I had a play ready to go, but my coach told me to call a timeout. And then Sherman has said, if you are that quarterback, if you are that guy, you don't have to look at the sidelines to get a call a timeout. You just get to call your timeout. He says Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar, all those guys, they are the team. They get to call their own timeouts. They don't need to wait for the sideline. Now, that obviously adds a lot more complications to, the coach-player dynamic, where, certain quarterbacks are definitely going to own a little bit more control. But I thought it was a really interesting pivot that Sherman added to that. And I think Sherman's probably like the perfect example of why so many former Seahawks players came back to watch this game, to watch Russell Wilson, to see if he would win out. I think Pete, to a degree, also talked about it a little bit, where he didn't say anything outright, but he said, like, he basically kind of alluded to the fact that, a lot of people came back to see Russ lose. Whether or not they expect it to happen, that's a separate thing, but that's what they all came here for. And it happened, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, didn't Russ leave so he could call a timeout in that situation and not have to look at Pete for,
I mean, that's what everyone in the media has been asking. Everyone's saying, like, Nathaniel Hackett.
That was his moment.
Yeah,
that was his moment to
Nathaniel Hackett.
Peyton.
Nathaniel Hackett was, he basically, just neutered his quarterback. That's why you paid the guy $252 million.
Also, Russ didn't call the timeout because his coach told him to. There was literally like a second left on the play clock. He had to call it.
Yeah. So, I don't know if either of you watched the Manning cast of the game, but someone did a count, and in the 40-plus seconds that the Broncos ran off the clock, Peyton Manning said and motioned timeout on the broadcast 62 times. So he was saying, all right, call a timeout, timeout, guys.
Because you have to. It's ridiculous that they didn't. Obviously.
I mean, so many people have said when you're coaching in that moment, you lose track of a lot of things. You get tunnel vision on the wrong things sometime. But that's why you have a staff that should be there on the sidelines telling you what to do. So
yeah, I get letting 5 to 10 seconds run off in the chaos of the moment, but like at some point, you remember that you're in the middle of a football game and there's a minute left, and you're trying to win.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much revisionist history coming out. Like, initially it said that, McManus said, get me to the left hash in the 46 and I'll kick it. And apparently that's all they were looking forward to. Russ is saying, like, I had a play, but we just sat there. We didn't huddle up. We didn't get to the line. And then 1 second was left on the clock, and I called a timeout. It's like, well, which is it? Were you going to kick the field goal, or did you have a play? Like, pick a lane. Like, don't try and rewrite history. We all saw what happened. So,
yeah, we were watching.
Yeah. I mean, I was in disbelief. I thought they were going to go for it, like, right away. I thought they'd either call that timeout or they'd try and get the quick snap and try and get the 5 yards. I was shocked that they ended up kicking the field goal.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if there's anyone in the world that was like thinking, oh yeah, that's totally what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so either. It doesn't make any sense to me. It just and then even after all that was done, and they still had 2 timeouts left, and we got the ball back. It was weird. It was weird whether they were going to use their timeouts or not. Do you remember that? Like it got.
Well, it's weird that they kept calling so the coach he had 2 timeouts. They couldn't stop the clock. They couldn't force a punt, but he still forced Seattle to take 3 knees to end the game. I don't know if you saw Marquise Goodwin, number 11, but he did a backflip every time they snapped the ball. That was pretty insane athleticism.
Yeah, but there was something happened after the first kneel down where the clock was running and they didn't use the timeout, and then somehow the time.
Yeah, then he was yelling
back on.
He was yelling to get time back on. So I called a timeout, and it's like.
It was just weird. It was just chaos.
It was a perfect example of a guy trying way too hard when he had messed up, and he was trying to do everything he could to fix it. So yeah, it was weird. Anyway, let's move on to the final topic of the night. Topic number 4 is the San Francisco 49ers. So we talked about this in the opening. There's some quarterback issues going on. Bird, I don't know if he's on mute, but we will get his thoughts on this quickly. But first to Zeb. Are the Niners going to have to turn to Jimmy G soon? And is Lance going to be a mistake?
Okay, on the first part, are they going to have to turn to Jimmy G soon? I think it depends on ultimately what they want out of this season. What's more important? Is their investment in Trey Lance more important than the possibility of Jimmy G making them a better team right now? They invested a lot in Trey, and they expect Trey to be their quarterback for some seasons to come, which means he needs to get better. And he's not going to get better if he's not playing. So if they stick with him, they're going to see, by the end of the season, we'll probably have a much better idea of whether Trey Lance is going to be able to get better or not. If they think they have a shot at a championship and that Jimmy G ultimately gives them a better chance to do that, then they make the switch. But again, it's a conflict. I don't know that's either way. There's a sacrifice. You're either sacrificing Lance progressing as a quarterback, or you're sacrificing the possibility of winning the Super Bowl. I don't know that this 49er team led by Jimmy G is likely to go to and win the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't be surprised if they hold out on bringing Jimmy G in for quite a while, or maybe even they just don't do it.
And as is tradition, a San Francisco 49er running back is injured to open the season. So
yes,
rip to all those fantasy owners that have Elijah Mitchell racing my hand. So really quickly about that, can teams even afford to do that? Can teams afford to say, we're just going to roll the dice on this guy because we invested in him. We don't know if he's any good because we can't figure it out because he's only thrown 20 passes in his career, but we paid for him, so we're going to figure it out.
I mean, to a certain degree, you have to. I know, obviously, fans don't like it. They want to win now, no matter what. But a lot of these, it's a long-term investment. Drafting a high quarterback like that is a long-term investment. And it's, if you give up too soon, you have to time that right? Like, you have to make sure if he's the guy or not. And again, you're not going to find that out by him sitting on the bench. So
true. All right, Bird, I got to ask you. Are the Niners going to have to turn to Jimmy G soon? And is Lance going to be a mistake? They traded a lot to acquire the guy.
Lance is a huge mistake.
Oh, right off the bat.
So far.
Right off the bat, he's just going for the haymaker.
You're damn right. Because Lance right now, he can run and he can throw real far. But that's kind of about it. His decision-making isn't there. He's just, with Garoppolo, you have, you have, a game manager. But the 49ers are kind of built for a game manager, I think, because they got a experimental but pretty effective running game, and they got a good defense. They just need someone to facilitate the ball down the field.
This is a team that has been to the NFC Championship, twice in the last 5 years?
Yeah, and with Garoppolo, wasn't it?
Both times with Garoppolo and a Super Bowl with Garoppolo.
So they sell the farm to get Lance instead of trying to go further with Garoppolo. I think if they make the trade, the switch to Garoppolo, like this weekend, I would be more concerned if Garoppolo was playing us than Lance. I think we could win that game with Lance playing. Not to spoil the predictions or not.
So let me ask you the question that I asked that.
Sure.
can they afford to do it? You know, Kyle Shanahan can make this decision because he knows that he has ownership's backing. That ownership says, yes, we see your 2 to 3 year vision down the road, and we will accept a middling year because we expect Trey Lance under your guidance to turn into Josh Allen like Josh Allen did in year 2 and 3.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. He's gonna. I think it's just going to be a disaster down there if they stay with Lance, and even recovering from the trade that they made and everything they lost. They're just in a world of hurt with Lance. But that's just right now. I think maybe next year he's got it going on. Maybe he just needs more time. I think this is just too early for Lance to have the reins.
So, just to kind of give a little bit of a highlight. So, Trey Lance, in his NFL career, has played in 7 games. He's had 99 passing attempts. In college, Trey Lance played in 19 college games, and he had just over 300 and just about 320 career passing attempts. So, in 7 games, he has 1/3 the passing attempts, but in the NFL, he's got a terrible passing percentage. It's 54.5. In college, it was 65.4. But I would be very concerned if I were a 49er fan, not just for this year, but for the future, because Jimmy G signed a contract, or he reworked his contract. So instead of getting cut, he gets a much smaller deal, but he is guaranteed not to get franchised. So at the end of this year, he's a free agent. He does not have to stick around. The San Francisco 49ers cannot do anything other than throw a ton of money at him, which is always the worst position to be in. You never want to be in a position where you feel forced to throw your money at your quarterback because they just have too much leverage. And while I know there's some Seattle fans that thought Jimmy G would have been like the best guy in Seattle, I just don't think it would have worked out, especially early in the year. I think the Niners, if they want to win, if Trey Lance looks like he has in his NFL career so far, I think they will regret playing him for the rest of the year. Not because he can't get better, because it's definitely possible, but because it's always about this year. Pete Carroll says, and we saw this in the last game, is you play to win all the games, you coach to win all the games, but there are definitely going to be times where you're going to say, like, yeah, sometimes we're going to be overmatched, and we're just going to try and keep it close. Like, if Seattle had lost to the Broncos, but they lost by 2 points because the dude kicked a 64-yard field goal, I still would have considered that a moral victory for Seattle, because they held a team that they were expected to lose by 6.5 points. And Seattle's a 10-point underdog in this 49ers game for some reason.
Ridiculous.
But I think the Niners, either Trey Lance needs to show more, something I don't think a lot of us have really felt we've seen, even as division rivals. But I think he has to show a lot more. Otherwise, Jimmy G is going to get all these calls to start. Fans are going to start asking for it. The media is going to start asking for it. And eventually, those will trickle up to the head coach and to the owner and say, like, look, we could have won this game if we had a different quarterback. Same thing is going to happen to Geno down the road. If Geno has a bad game, there's going to be a certain contingent of fans saying, like, it's time to play Drew Lock. He's going to be able to push the ball down the field, and that's what's going to help us to win. And I think that's what San Francisco has already found themselves. And if they don't win this game, then they're going to find themselves seeing that heat get turned up.
Yeah.
This is the part of the podcast where I remind everybody that that the Seahawks are 30-17 against the 49ers all time. The history of the Seahawks 49ers is a history of domination. we have scored more points against the San Francisco 49ers than every other team we've played besides the Raiders. They're the only team that we've scored more points against than the 49ers, and that's like in like 8 more games, right? The 49ers have scored less points against us than every other team that we've ever been in a division with. So the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Rams, those teams have all scored more points against us than the 49ers have.
So here's a quick breakdown to piggyback off what Zeb just said. In the 2000s, Seattle was 10-6 against the 49ers. In the 2010s, and this is when the Niners were at their strongest, the Seahawks were 14-7 all time against the 49ers. That includes a playoff victory. In the 2020s, the Seahawks are 4-0 against the 49ers. That is a very strong showing across what people consider to be 2 very good head coaches in Jim Harbaugh and in Kyle Shanahan. So very, very good historical numbers for the Seahawks for sure.
Yeah. We've scored like 300 more points against them than they've scored against us.
Yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on the 49ers before we get to some predictions.
Man, let's go beat their ass.
All right, sounds good.
49ers.
All right, sounds good. All right, so let's kick it off with our predictions. So as our special guest, Bird, I'm going to kick it off to you. Final score, Seahawks at 49ers this weekend.
Well, I think Pete Ball is going to be slugfest as it usually is, but I think it's going to be 2017 Seahawks.
Nice. Always good for a win. Definitely covers the spread. Zeb, what is your prediction for the score?
Seahawks 27-20.
I'm going to go a little bit stronger. I think it's going to be a little bit stronger of a win, just because historically Pete just has the 49ers number. I'm going to say it's going to be a 28-14 win, Seattle Seahawks.
Ooh, I like it.
Yes. All right. Bird, who is going to have more passing yards? Who's going to be our passing yards leader? Geno Smith or Trey Lance?
Geno Smith. Ooh. By quite a ways too.
If you throw in Drew Lock in there, I'd be like, okay, I see where you're going. Zeb, who do you have as our passing yards leader in this game?
Trey Lance.
I think it's going to be one of those things that Trey Lance probably gets like a ton of garbage yards, but I'm going to say Geno is going to be. He's going to get like 225, and that's all it's going to be. Trey's not going to complete enough passes. Maybe he'll get benched. These are teams that both like to run. We didn't see a whole lot of running from the Seahawks in this previous game, but Bird, who is going to be the rushing leader in this game? Is it going to be the Seahawks or is it going to be the 49ers?
You know, this kind of hinges on our rookie running back to see if he's going to make it or not. If he does, Seahawks. But if he doesn't, I think probably 49ers because of Debo. And they do have an interesting running attack.
Fair enough. Zeb, who do you have leading the way in the rushing?
I think that Bird's right. We need Kenny to play, and I think Kenny's going to play, and that is going to make us the leader.
Nice. Just to add a different taste to everything, I'll say that the 49ers try to run it out because they have like 300 running backs that are going to get injured throughout the year, so why not give them like a yard each? That'll give them 300, right?
Yeah.
The final prediction for the night, who is going to be our target leader? Is it going to be DK? Is it going to be Lockett? Is it going to be someone else? Just to add some knowledge out there for everybody, the targets were definitely geared in favor of DK. He led the way with 7 targets, and then there was 4 people tied at 3 targets. Penny, Will Dissly, and then Lockett and Noah Fant had 3 catches. So,
yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be Lockett. I think he's just going to. I think they're going to try to control DK a little bit, and Lockett's he can burn anybody. He'll be able to get open for Geno.
Zab, who do you have leading the way on targets in this game?
DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf. Nice. I'm going to go with the field. I'm going to say that it's not going to be DK and it's not going to be Tyler. It is going to be the field, and I feel it's going to be a combined effort, but I think the tight ends will lead the way, and I'm going to give it to Mr. Will Disley. I think Uncle Will has been doing a great job. Hopefully he continue and, get those touchdowns as well.
Nice, Uncle Will.
Uncle Will.
And gentlemen, that is our podcast for the day. Closing remarks before we get to some shout-outs?
I want to see this team run the ball.
Yeah.
I wonder if last week, or if they're taking it easy on Penny with Kenny hurt, because we didn't run enough. We had 3-and-out passing later in the game. That's unnecessary. We need to see this team run the football. So hopefully Kenny can come back healthy.
Well, weather might play a factor in that. I think Sammy was telling me earlier. It's supposed to be horrible.
Yeah, it's going to be raining all day. Raining all day. No, so that game was in Chicago, where it was
right. But I mean, so it's going to be it's still going to be pouring down rain.
Rain cloud followed the 49ers down.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone remembers, but Santa Clara, that's where they actually play, Levi Stadium. It has one of the worst fields in the NFL. Hopefully they fix that, but we'll see.
Oof.
My hope is, really quickly to piggyback off Zeb, is, Damian Lewis was a full at practice today, so good to see that he came back from that dreaded high ankle sprain, which means that the hope is that our running game will look better because we have our better left guard in there. Phil Haynes, from the people that I talk to that follow offensive lineman play, they say he wasn't great and that Gabe Jackson's not great. So the hope is that with a little bit more depth, we can actually swap out who plays at right guard, but the hope is that Charles Cross, Abe Lucas were playing great, give them a little bit stronger of Damian Lewis on that left side, and, we can plow some field and we can run the ball.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, time for some shout-outs.
Shout out to Ross, man. Miss you, bro.
Agreed. I concur.
Okay, I got 3 shout-outs, so look out.
Fire away.
I want to shout out Washington State University for their big win over Wisconsin.
That was a huge win.
That's my university. I'm a Coug. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
I want to shout out Zeb and Sammy for being brave enough to have me on.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. And I want to give a shout out to Ross. He really should have been here for this big win, but hopefully we'll be able to hear his thoughts next week about dominating Russell Wilson.
Well, you know what? If we start this season 2-0, I think that will defy a lot of people's expectations. That will mean that we have a potentially exciting year coming ahead of us. I want to give a shout out to Zeb and to Bird and to Ross because you guys are part of what keeps us going. We are the Hawkscast.net podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. Check us out at Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, at Seahawks Forum. We're all on Twitter. Find us online. We'd love to hear from you. Until we hear from you again, we wish you all a Go Hawks.
Let's
go Hawks.
We gotta work on that, right?
Fly on, fly on.